And that is it. We are live. Live on LinkedIn again. Let's. I always feel the need to check it out on LinkedIn just to make sure.
Yeah, I'm checking too. I think it's like 30-second or a minute behind LinkedIn.
I think so too.
Because for me, it still says starting soon. Oh no, it's there now.
All right, good stuff. Well, we'll give it a minute or two for anyone that's joined or signed up to join.
Sure. I honestly, I haven't looked at emails, looked at LinkedIn. I've done no work, let's say, for about a week. It's been nice to unplug. I haven't thought about AI once.
You must have thought, hang on, why is there no AI to build my IKEA furniture just yet?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues we had is my wife wrote all of the labels for the boxes in Portuguese. So I'm looking at them going, I don't know what's in that box. So I'm having to get her to translate all of the boxes. The ones I packed, I wrote in English, but we forgot to talk about that.
Oh boy. I can see Natasha's joined us. So hello. It looks like I've got some restriction on the account that means I cannot post back, but
Right.
we see you, Natasha. And yeah, if you've got any questions for us, please do pop them in. Just like you've said, hello, we'll see them, we can answer them. But unfortunately, it looks like we can't do a text chat back and forwards. So yeah, welcome to the office hours with us. If you do have any questions, yeah, like I said, please do pop them in. Like the whole point of this is we're here to help answer anything that's top of your mind. And if not, we generally have a couple of topics that are top of our minds that we run through. Some things that we've just been observing from the market, and you can sit back and listen. But yeah, if you have anything specific, do let us know. Good. Yeah, Mark, anything on your mind outside of IKEA furniture and moving, or is it, maybe slightly less so over the last week?
Yeah, definitely less so this week. So happy to be led by some of the questions you've been getting, Mark.
Yeah, sure. So I actually posted a list of questions and themes that I've been seeing cropping up on LinkedIn over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, which we can dive into. I can sort of open them up and share them.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. I did have one. While I find that, I'm going to ask one what might be a slightly provocative question. I'd be really keen to get your take on it. And while you're thinking of how you're viewing it, then I'll pull up these other questions. So what I've been thinking is, particularly when it comes to cold outreach, right? Like we know everyone seems to be struggling. If you ignore some of the folks on LinkedIn who may have questionable metrics associated with how they say they're killing it, everyone that you actually speak to seems to be somewhat challenged by the approach. And even those who say they're doing well are at least admitting on the whole that their response rates are 1%, 0.5%. Yeah, that seems to be the new best sort of best performance that people are achieving. And I was trying to think, well, where you get such low direct response from such a large volume of activity, is it even direct response anymore? Right? Or is it brand marketing? And so this has just got me thinking, right? Like if ever you do an activity that reaches a large group of people where actually you really don't anticipate much of a direct action, and the evidence is suggesting it's not, are we thinking about it all wrong? Should we not be thinking about it as brand marketing? And I get why we still think of it as direct response. It's because it was, you used to be able to send out X number of emails and you'd get a 5%, 10% response rate, right? So it just made sense.
Yeah.
Now the equations change. So yeah, let me pose that question. Are we thinking about outreach through an entirely incorrect lens these days? And should we actually rethink of it as a brand marketing exercise? And if so, what would that mean for it?
Yeah, it's a really good. I think the most important thing that you're bringing up here is, do we need to change the way we think about it, whether or not we label it as brand marketing or something else? Is it still the same as what it used to be? And I think that's a really important thing to recognize, because still my argument would be, not against you there, Mark, but my argument would be the right message to the right prospect at the right time can still be effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've shared with you privately, but when I ran a company that offered lead research services for companies, we would give them the data, and then they would turn around a month later and say, the data's rubbish because we're not getting any replies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I was biased to the work that my team were doing, but I wanted just to see what they were doing with this data. And in pretty much 99% of the cases, they were either targeting the wrong people in the first place, or they were sending bad messages to people. The message was all about them, the company. There was no segmentation, there was no targeting, there was no angle at all when it came to the campaign strategy behind it all. So I think there is a lot of bad practice, and now there's even bigger volumes of bad practice because AI. And we talked about the AI SDRs, which are just accelerating bad playbooks and bad practices as well. So I think when done correctly, it still can be a direct response channel or seen as a direct response activity. But if it's not done correctly, I think Eric Nowosowski, I've got to learn how to say his name. He shared, not in the most recent book, but in the recent document, but the year before, he does a campaigns wrap. So he's got 50 odd clients. He's sending millions of emails a month, and he kind of shares what was working and what hasn't worked in 2024, 2025. One of the things that he said in his 2023 edition of it was he views cold email as a private ad network. So you have the inboxes of your potential prospects, which you can get into if your deliverability is right. So even then, even though he offers cold email as a service, and most people want that service to generate meetings and opportunities and close one business, he still recognizes that it is a kind of an ad network that you can control. So yeah, I don't think it's an I don't think it's like a closed question, but I think if you want to change the way that you're viewing cold email, then your approach to cold email will change as well. So if you are looking at a brand marketing point of view, then your message might be slightly different, and the way that you approach it would be. But again, Mark, time and time again, I will talk about a sequence with a client, and they will say, well, what touch point is the one that gets the most replies? And it's like, well, there isn't one touch point. So whether you're doing cold email, cold calling, LinkedIn, you're leaving voicemails. Like I mentioned that for one of my clients, they should leave a voicemail, because it's an additional touch point. They should try LinkedIn voice notes because it's an additional touch point. But I can't say that is the one thing in your sequence of 12 activities that's going to get the reply. It's kind of like a sum of everything, of all the activity that really moves the needle.
Yeah. So I agree with pretty much, as always, everything you're saying. But I do think there's, and this is very fresh, so I probably need to evolve my thinking a little bit. But it's always healthy to discuss your viewpoints, right? And that helps helps tease them out. In, let's say, in billboards, like classic brand marketing, the most brand marketing you can get. If you put the billboard in the right place at the right time with the right message, you will drive someone to go and buy your product right there and then. They're going to go online, or they're going to go into the shop, or they'll visit your restaurant. You capture lightning at that moment in time. So you can, in even the broadest brand marketing, drive direct action. But the way you think about it is to assume you can't necessarily attribute it to that direct action, that one single touch point, and nor should you optimize the entire campaign, the entire messaging, the entire placement around hoping that you'll get those one or two activations. If we did, brand marketing would be very, very different, and dare I say it, really quite crappy. Instead, it's often quite clever. It has to try and grab your attention, and it's playing to the wider market to influence your thinking and behaviors over the long term, right? And that's where I think people are, if people thought about it more in that way. So imagine you're going to run a brand marketing campaign to try and switch a particular segment of the market over to your product from a competitor's, and you set up 3 billboards and you run it for a month and you go, oh, sales haven't spiked. This is rubbish. This isn't working, right? No one that in their right mind approaches brand marketing in that way, right? You commit to it over a 6-12 month period, and you see and you compound those touch points as you hopefully see awareness, then consideration, then intent, and then revenue starts to go up and to the right. But that is how people approach direct outreach, right? It's like, right, we're going to switch it on, and if we don't get some sales, if we don't get some SQLs, we're going to turn it back off again because it was rubbish. It didn't work. And I'm just not convinced that is the right way of viewing it. I think people need to be more committed to a longer term view of outreach, knowing that buyers are more educated, right? They are more inundated with messaging, and the likelihood of you reaching the 3% of accounts that are in market and the economic buyer, so that's 10% of the stakeholders you can reach out to. So you're running a campaign hoping that you will convince 10 people a month, let's say, that's in that 0.3% category to say, yes, I'll jump on a call with you. Just feels a little bit off. Whereas you can absolutely reach them and all their stakeholders and potential partners and champions and accounts who aren't yet in market and accounts who might not be even problem aware, and reach them with a valuable touch point. Might not be direct response, but you can start to build a relationship, influence their behavior like a brand marketer would do. Is that a healthier way to view the channel that's going to lead to less burning through massive lists and throwing them out and then saying it doesn't work?
Yeah. And I've always struggled with this when delivering training for SDRs through my work at Sales Impact Academy or with my own clients. I'm telling SDRs to play sales is a long game. No means no right now in sales. It's a potential yes in the future. Just because you hear a no from a prospect doesn't mean that they'll never want to hear from you again. When you don't send a breakup email that says you won't be in contact again, because you might be. But I've got to balance all of that advice with, but still hit your quota, hit your 20 MQLs or SQLs each month. So I think, and then we think, well, where does this quota and where do these numbers come from, and what game are we playing, and who's telling us, who's setting the rules of that game? And we know it comes from the senior leadership, the VCs that have run a playbook that used to work on those numbers, but it no longer does. But there's always a few years lagging behind, like the predictable revenue playbook, for example, which was very effective before that book came out. Then it became less effective because a lot of people started doing it, and now it's almost not effective at all because those numbers just don't. The math ain't mathing anymore. But yeah, I've always thought, well, what's the alternative? And it's a very kind of like an up in the air answer, and it's more like qualified conversations. Like if you can target your team on making X amount of qualified conversations, so conversations with the right prospect, but just because they're not BANT qualified doesn't mean that they are disqualified. It just means that it's a not now. And then how can you then encourage your reps to then keep in constant contact, not every day or every week, but do they have a nurture list that they're working? Is there a great account that looks like they would be a great customer, but they're not ready right now? The reps don't do anything because they're not incentivized to do anything with those people other than burn through the rest of the list. And then build a new list of other companies to call and try and get that 3%. So yeah, I'll pause there, but it's not a great answer.
No, I think it's, I think what sharing is it's the ultimate conundrum. As you said, we have to hit numbers, right? Like I'm not pie in the sky. I'm a pragmatist. You know, I run a business. We need to hit our numbers. We need to grow our business. I just think the mentality, as you said, around it probably does more harm than good in so many respects, because we go so hard and literally burn our future customers by trying to get the ones today. We are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and there has to be a way of balancing. I think I used the phrase last month, right? It's like win today. We do need to win today. We have to chalk up that we're able to execute and hit numbers, but own tomorrow as well, right? We have to lay a strong foundation for the future and not kill our brand and kill our reputation whilst trying to build up those numbers. And I don't know if I have a perfect answer for exactly how we do it, but I think if we keep ignoring the fact that the fundamental approach is the lens through which we think about some of these fundamental go-to-market motions that underpin thousands of businesses, is quite possibly just the wrong lens. It's just fundamentally shifted. We're going to keep getting the wrong answer.
I agree. but we both agree that we don't know what the answer is just yet. I think definitely need to have some more thought and an open conversation about it as well, really.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can bet I'm working towards figuring out some of those answers with RevDuck, but I'm not going to say we have it just yet, right? But I think the important thing is to have, if you have the right intent and the right models, you will come to the right answer.
Yeah. And I think as well, we're talking about AI today as well. And the more kind of AI-ified life gets and engagements happen where you're speaking to a chatbot and you're interacting with a computer and automation, I think the more that people, if they're buying, we're not ready to buy a serious purchase. We're not ready to buy from an AI. We still want to buy from a human. So I think the human element of sales is going to stay for a long time, but not on a transactional level. The 19, like my Netflix of £12 a month. Like I don't need to speak to a human, nor do I want to. But anything which is 99, maybe 99 a month now, I'm okay without a human. £300 a month, I probably have some questions. I probably have some questions which are quite deep or technical about the product. So I think there's always going to be a human in the loop when the deal size is a certain amount.
Yeah. Oh, I fully agree. I really, as you very much all in on AI, but I think it's a long time until people are making high ticket complex purchases without a single human touch point in the mix.
Exactly.
I really think we're a while away from that for sure. Awesome. Thank you for indulging me. It's been something that's been kicking around in my mind for a few days, and no one better to talk through.
Great question.
Cool. So there's a bunch of different questions here. As I said, that I pulled out. The question is which question to go with. What seems really interesting?
I'm just pulling up the post as well now.
What's the ideal cold email structure in under 85 words? That feels super difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say observation, problem, solution, call to action.
Observation, problem, solution, call to action. Tell us a little bit more.
Mark, so this again, I never like to do like an improv cold email. So I'm going to make a real obvious example. But Mark, see that you're hiring at RevDup, or see that you've hired 2 account executives in the last 3 months at RevDup. That's probably too wordy. See that you're hiring AEs. Ramp times are increasing because of XYZ. Have you considered a bespoke training program, an onboarding playbook, whatever the solution is, would you be interested in seeing it? Would be the call to action. I would try and put some social proof in there as well. If I couldn't, like I always talk about not crowbarring social proof or personalization. So if I can't fit it into the main body, I might say PS client A they reduced the time it took for AEs to close deals by 2 months after following our playbook. So that would be a bit of social proof, which might be in the PS. So to get to under 85 words, that needs a little bit of massaging, but that framework can be used to get to less than 85.
Love it. So good. It's almost identical to a core, like one of the core frameworks we use in our outreach, and it's effective, right? It produces good results. It gives it's clear and not it's not too spammy, right? So long as your observation and problem statements are on point. One CTA that we're doing more and more of at the moment is it's not new, but we just see it is working quite nicely, is around offering to produce a video, right?
Nice.
Can I shoot you a quick loom to show how this might work in your circumstance, right? So it's not asking for a meeting, and it's not being too vague with the ask of the response either. It's quite clear. Here's what I'll do, and that seems to be cutting through better than other CTAs.
One that I tried last year for when I was working with a client, which didn't work, but I think it didn't work because the problem wasn't big enough, and I think a lot of people were not in market.
Yeah.
The thing was, are you happy with name of type of tool, category of tool? If not, I've got an alternative for you. ... And it was just a simple one sentence or sentence with a comma to separate it. So, okay, I won't say again, I don't want to say the name of the client, but are you, Mark, are you happy with your e-signature tool? Got a potential alternative if you're interested in me sharing.
Nice. Very nice.
Now, if they're interested, great. If not, it's cool. I'll move on to then try and find that 3% of the market that might be in market. My follow-up was something along the lines of 2 days later or 2 or 3 days later was the reason I asked was because we helped company do X with Y, or company did X with Y. Not making it about me or about my product, but what was the problem and what was the outcome. So that's something that I might try for myself with some outreach, especially reaching out to sales leaders saying, how confident are you that your reps are going to hit targets this quarter?
Yeah. Very good. I like that. I don't know whether it will be as effective if it's not a specific tool, but I think it's always worth trying.
I think any problem. I think it can work for any problem as long as the problem's big enough. And this one of my like I was hesitant to work with this client because I didn't think cold email would be the right channel for them. And I did at the very beginning say, I don't think cold email is the right channel, but they wanted to test it anyway, which is fair enough. It's always worth testing and letting the data show you. I think what they've ended up doing is spending more on paid ads because they get a lot of, they've got a lot of organic SEO and then also paid SEO for really high intent keywords, which convert very, very well. And they have a self-serve sign up process. So it's touchless and then it's assisted via sales when a big company signs up for the free trial, then the sales team jump in, and that's far more effective than trying to go and capture the 3% via cold email.
Love it. That makes a ton of sense. Natasha, thank you. So Natasha's asking, do you have any advice on how this would apply for a consultancy? I offer consultancy and fractional services. What is the best way for me to apply this?
Yeah, I'll start here, Mark. So I think, Natasha, great question. And I hear this one quite a lot from consultants and fractionals. I think the important thing to remember is being a consultant or a fractional or a part-time is just the vehicle that you utilize to solve the problem for people. So really what you should focus on is the problems that you can solve for people. Those are the those are the topics that you can use to open the conversation, whether it be a consulting engagement, which might be a month, or it might be a 3-month process, or it's ongoing fractional at 1 or 2 days a month, that comes later in the conversation with a prospect. But what you need to do is get your foot in the door by asking questions around the problems that you can solve. So I'll pause there because I know, Mark, you've got some experience of this as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that maybe I can add on above and beyond that initial like 85 word template, and they apply specifically to more creative scenarios, of which I would bucket potentially consultancies and fractional into. Now I am thinking a little bit through an AI lens, but it works wonderfully well without AI as well. It's just we experiment with how AI can apply this, and there's two things that you can put into the outreach that can be, if you get it right, really effective and high impact. The first is offering some specific, and they have to be specific, creative ideas, right? So if you can do the research and you can see, SEO agencies did it for a long time, right? Where they would look for broken links and then say, hey, I've noticed X, Y, you've got 7 broken links. Want me to send you the report of where they are, right? So if you can do a little bit of upfront research to, with some confidence, pinpoint where you think they've got a challenge or they're not doing something as well as they could do, or even you just have a confidence that they are approaching something in a particular way, you can use that as your creative idea to then say, hey, I noticed, again, the observation, X, Y, Z. Have you thought about applying it in this way? Or have you thought about doing this? Or I've done this with similar clients. Here's what it looked like, right? So that can be really effective, because rather than withholding the value and saying, I promise in the future to give you this value, you're giving it up front, right? That engenders trust and credibility. So it's a very powerful mechanism to do. And the second piece is, if you don't necessarily have an ability to create those ideas with confidence, then asking really good questions as a consultant is almost more powerful, right? Like if you can reframe someone's thinking by asking them a really powerful question that they've not asked themselves or been asked in a while, that is lightning, right? If you can say, hey, have you considered X, or have you asked yourself this recently, and they haven't, and it resonates with them, they'll be like, man, I want to speak to this person, right? They know what they're talking about, right? I want more of this good stuff. So either providing creative ideas or really on point questions are two great ways for consultancies, agencies, folks in more creative industries to stand out in your emails.
Mark, I think I really like both of those different angles. It's worth testing both to see if you can offer something. I'm just looking at Natasha's LinkedIn profile as you were answering, and I know Natasha has an SOP template, so standard operating procedure template for what it is. That could be something that you could offer. The other thing on Mark's second point about the questions, I like to kind of go a level further, not a level further, but just think about them slightly differently. Of what would my ideal client be moaning to their friend about in the pub, or to their partner about when they're at home? And Natasha Natasha has a newsletter called Scale Without Chaos. So immediately I'm going chaos, chaos, chaos. Like every founder knows what that chaos feels like. Every founder puts their head on the pillow at night thinking, I own my own to-do list, but it's never ending. How do I offload more tasks to other people? Why can't I just work with people that get it? And the reason why they can't work with people that get it is most of the time the founder is keeping a lot of the information in their head and not delegating effectively. And that's exactly where Natasha could help. But the bit of advice that I would share here as well is that people buy what they want, rarely what they need. But so you need to sell people what they want, but give them what they need. The answer for Natasha, I can imagine in her engagements, would be SOPs, process optimization, delegation tips. You know, those are the grunt work that needs to happen with the support of Natasha. I'm just imagining. I'm looking at Natasha's LinkedIn profile. But what the founder wants is sleep easier at night, to trust that his team are going to do the task, they're going to follow the instructions that they need to. They don't want the chaos. They want it to feel efficient. So there's two very different things there. But when you're trying to start conversations, at least, and having those initial conversations with prospects, we have to be thinking about what they want. So Mark and I both work in the world of people want more meetings, and Mark and I can do different things to generate those meetings. But it doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter at the beginning what we do to generate those meetings. We just talk about generating meetings. Does that make sense? I went a bit off tangent there, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, well, for me, it makes sense. Hopefully, Natasha, it seems like it's come across to you as well. The thing around people don't buy what they need; they buy what they want. Is such an important insight. And do you follow a guy called Anthony Pieri? Mark?
From Fletch.
From Fletch.
Yes, yeah.
He had an amazing example of it. I think it was just this morning or yesterday. Put a post out, and I put in the comments, I'm going to steal this, and here
nice.
I am, 12 hours later, stealing it with full attribution. And he was saying the difference in framing of him selling something to founders has been really profound. So the thing is, right, they try and sell product marketing.
Yeah.
And one of the key things to effective product marketing is narrowing your value proposition down to a single value proposition to a single buyer, which is nightmarishly hard when you're speaking to founders who want to be all things to all people and go after a massive market, right? So he was saying he found this profound shift where if he was saying to founders, hey, you've got to niche down, you've got to narrow your focus, they needed it, but they didn't want to buy it. Right, because it felt like they're being unambitious, they're leaving too much of the market untapped, and so on. When he reframed it as, "Hey, if you use this as your wedge, a Trojan horse to get in, win the business, and then you can expand into all these other use cases. You've got a land and expand motion, right? You can go nuts."
Yeah.
Suddenly, they're like, "I love this. I want to buy this, right? I'm all in now, right? You're helping me win a deal, and with this land and expand motion, you're not telling me I can't do these things that I want to do, right? You're telling me I'm going to do them just in this order." And that just really, really resonated with me. So that was a good example of, I think, what you're saying here as well.
Yeah, like if you want to, I always go back to this analogy as well. If you want to lose weight and you work with a personal trainer, what you're really getting is accountability. And every personal trainer will say, move more and eat less. And one way that you can eat less is just become more aware of eating less. And that's by counting your macros or tracking your macros in an app. And if you have the additional accountability of having to send that report or updates to somebody else who you're paying, you're more likely to lose weight. But what we want is to lose weight. But what we really need to do is move more. So block out time in your calendar to do an hour of walking every day. You know, whatever the PT tells you to do, or the fat loss coach tells you to do. We also need to track our food, which means we need to go shopping and buy the right ingredient. You know, boring shit, which you don't want to. That doesn't sound exciting, or that is going to work. So that's why I have a 9-week fat loss program. But my 9-week fat loss program is just a fancy wrapper around move more, eat healthy, and track what you eat. Because even if you're eating healthy and you're eating, I don't know, sweet potatoes, 2 big sweet potatoes might actually get you out of your calorie deficit, which is going to work against you losing weight. Boring stuff, but it's sometimes the most simple things that are the most effective.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Just the such simple concepts, but then you've got me thinking now. We're all told we have to sell painkillers, right? And you mentioned it earlier, right? The problem has to be big enough to generate a response. But how much does the appetite for solving the problem suppress responses, do we think? So if you send an outreach and say, let's use Natasha, right? Like, hey, you want to constrain chaos. Yeah, I imagine that's a pretty big problem. It might be causing you sleep at night, right? Big problem. But if they think it's going to take way more effort and it's going to take them away from all these other things that they're going to do, or they've tried to implement an EOS system before and it's failed, and they just can't bear to go through that again, then they actually will continue to live with the pain and the chaos. But if you can package it so it doesn't feel like it's medicine, it actually feels like it is a vitamin, right? This is a nice, easy to digest supplement, they're much more likely to respond then, right? So it's actually both sides of the equation are really important. You have to have a big enough pain point, but you have to weigh that up with, I'm going to solve it in a way that is not more painful than leaving it.
Yeah, I think having previous customers that have gone through it and actually listening to them, because I've had some people that I've worked with before saying, I thought it was going to be much more work, but you simplified the process for me. Like that is gold for me to use in the future. Or also talk about like preempt. We talk about managing objections, Mark and I, later in the sales process, and about preempting objections. If you know that that might be an objection that somebody might have, it's like, oh, this sounds like too much work. Then in your messaging is like, and don't worry, it sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't, because the process I've developed over the last 12 years of working in this environment or specializing in this XYZ, insert your thing here, means that you shortcut all of the losses and you avoid an even bigger headache in the future as your team grows.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, it's a little bit of a, so I've got a toothache, it's not hurting too much, but if it gets worse, I'm going to go to the dentist. But now I've got a toothache and it's like, I'll see how it is tomorrow. But as tomorrow, if I wake up and it's really, really sore, I'm going to the dentist straight away. So I think it's about preempting what those potential questions might be or hesitations might be. And then also showing how other people have solved it too.
Definitely. As we're talking about this, it's reminded me of the Alex Hormozy value equation. I don't know if you've come across it. Like I figured you would do. I can never quite remember it off by heart, but I've got it in front of me, and it's the dream outcome times the perceived likelihood of achievement, which I think is so critical here, right? Do they believe what you're offering will actually achieve the outcome, divided by time delay, so how long is it going to take me to actually do this, times by the effort or sacrifice it's going to take. Right, so you take time delay and effort and scale, and basically subtract or divide that into the dream outcome and perceived likelihood of achieving it, and that's what then drives that value equation, which is going to drive whether they actually want to do it or not, right? So that, I think that's always a really interesting way. I haven't run out outreach through the value equation for a little while, but I think I might try and re-look at that. I think instinctively it's in the back of my head, but I haven't done the formula objectively for a little while.
Yeah, no, it's a great place to start, and then see what lands with the audience. So I had a very interesting conversation with a veteran agency owner. This was last year. He's been working in agencies for 30 years, and he replied to a cold email that I sent him. And one of the reasons he did was because I didn't sound like all the others. All the other emails, I will guarantee you 20 to 30 meetings a week, without spending money on any paid ads. And he replied, and when I got on the call with him, he was like, "These kids," he said, I look at their LinkedIn profile. They're straight out of college or no education on their LinkedIn. They look super young. They've never run an agency before, and they don't understand that a media buying agency of my size, we need 1 or 2 clients a quarter with an average spend of hundreds of thousands a month, sort of thing. They have no idea. So, and I know you weren't saying this, Mark, but when you look at the value proposition and the hormosification of offers that are out there, don't lead blindly with just the, okay, here's the formula framework. Like, think about you in the shoes of your prospect. Does it sound too good to be true? Because sometimes it does, and that puts people off. Does it sound like it's too much hard work? Okay, let's evolve it. And then the more times that you say and repeat that value proposition in front of people, the more you see their reactions, or you hear their sigh, or where you lose interest. And then that's where you tweak it and make it your own.
Yeah. I totally agree, because obviously I'm on the receiving end of tons of that
Yeah.
terrible outreach where it is completely unbelievable, right? Based on what they're saying, and so you cannot veer off too far. And I think one of the reasons that they come across as inauthentic and completely unrealistic is, yeah, they jump to the conclusion of the value equation, but they don't actually run through the process and therefore
Yeah.
show that they understand what the business is. So, you know, for it to work, you ideally implicitly or explicitly need to work out that value equation with your prospect to say, hey, look, you know, the time delay is normally whatever it is, right? Let's say it's outreach again. You know, normally it takes 2 weeks to warm up your inbox plus X amount to learn your ICP. Instead of saying you don't need to do any of it, unbelievable, right? You say, hey, typically it takes 2 weeks. We can get it down to a week or 10 days because XYZ unique value proposition. So you're still acknowledging that there is a bit of friction, but you're reducing it in a unique way with evidence. And then compared to the dream outcome of you're going to get 10 meetings. And again, that's where good versus bad outreach comes in, right? If you're going after a media buying agency and you're promising them 20 meetings a month, you're probably off the mark, right? If you can say 5 high quality meetings, they're going to be a bit more interested. If you do the same thing to an SMB, company selling SMB solutions at £1,000 ticket value, five meetings a month is going to do nothing. They need 30 or 40. So again, that's coming back to really understanding your market and the ICP.
Yeah, I often see people on when someone puts a request out there on LinkedIn, which is like, does anybody know a consultant that can help with X, Y, and Z? With training SDRs, using a sales example because of the world I live in. And there's lots of people going and just giving advice. And they have no context as to who is that SDR, what are they selling, how many do they need to sell, are they ahead of target, behind target, etc., etc. So oftentimes when people ask me if I can help, I'd be like, maybe. I need to have a conversation with you first of all to see whether I can. I had another conversation last year where they wanted 90K MRR in 60 days of starting outbound for a product that they sold for $30 a month. And I was like, it's possible, but I'm not your guy. I'm not the person that's going to be able to help you with that. And I do not want to commit to guaranteeing any results like that at all. But is it impossible? No. But do you realize the investment that you'll need to make in order to hit those targets? No, they didn't. And that's a red flag for me.
100%. Love that. Qualifying your buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Love it. Any other questions that you wanted to pick out from that list I shared?
Let's go back to it, Mark. So,
pretty big list.
Okay, a quick one on tools and tech stack choices, I think. So these, depending on who you sell to, as in your audience, who your prospects are, depends on the data source that you need to use. So everybody's looking for like an all-in-one tool that can do research and list building, then research. But I think there is no all-in-one tool for all different people to use that sell to different people. If you are selling to e-commerce brands, then there are e-commerce specific databases that you should use. If you're selling to hair salons and air conditioning contractors in North America, then probably Google Maps is a good place to start. And you build your list from local business listings. If you're selling to corporate jobs, then yeah, LinkedIn is probably going to be a good place. If you're selling to teachers or people within administration in schools, then there's probably a very bespoke database that exists for those people. So when you're making your tech stack decision, one decision needs to be on where is our data source and where is our data going to come from? And then the next decision is, okay, well, where will I put that data once I have it? And do you need to enrich the data? And enriching is essentially, do I need to add more context to the information that I already have? If the answer is yes, then you have a data enrichment tool. it's important that that data enrichment tool either integrates directly with your CRM or your sales engagement platform, the tool that you're using to send messages, or you can export it and then import it into the tools that you need to use. The majority of tools out there you'll be able to export that data once it's enriched. But I've seen people saying, I'm looking to replace Zoom Info, Cognism, Lusher with and another tool with Clay. Can it do it? And it's just like, well, no, but it's not supposed to do that from the list building point of view.
Sorry, Natasha was saying she's got to head off, so I was just saying goodbye and enjoy your dog walk.
Oh, lovely. Enjoy your walk.
Mark.
So yeah,
yeah,
that was my point of like, figure out your data source and treat that separately. Unless your prospects are on LinkedIn, then kind of any B2B database can be your data source.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everyone's pushing to save money, right? So everyone wants a platform play versus point solutions, best in class, whatever, however you want to term it. And this somewhat comes back to another post I made, I think on Monday, which is like, I do think everyone's getting tooling the wrong way around, right? Particularly in our world. Like, I think those who are in SaaS, particularly go to market, and they're reasonably online. By that, I mean they're on LinkedIn and they're trying to keep an eye on the market. They're inundated with tools, right? And therefore feel very, very confused about what's best, what to go with, what's vaporware, and so on. And they're not going from the right direction, which is, what is the problem I'm trying to solve in the first place, right? What is the challenge? Where's the biggest leverage that I could find by applying a new piece of tech in my workflows? And if you did that, then you quickly narrow down to, in this instance, it's such a good example, right? Like, I'm this type of business, I sell to this type of customer, therefore I can quickly rule out all of these other different tools. I'm probably now down to a set of one or two that are going to be best. And if people went from a use case first perspective of, here's my biggest pain point, or here's my biggest opportunity that I think there's there's some weakness in the org, and this is my setup, right? This is my existing tech stack, or this is my my market. The market gets far less confusing by going that way around.
No, 100%. I agree. I don't think a lot of people think about the use case, and I think unless you're really concerned about attribution, I don't think you need, for most businesses, you don't really need an all-in-one tool. The idea of having an all-in-one tool is great, but if the volume of clients and prospects is super low, then it's not worth the hassle of kind of paying and getting everything set up correctly. It takes a lot of orchestration and organization and planning to have an all-in-one solution singing in perfect harmony with the different components of the tools. There's a client I'm working with. They're just starting out they're being more proactive with sales. They've got Pipedrive, MailChimp, and they want a way to connect it. And I'm just like, Zapier will work. Like, there's only a few things that will go wrong, and we can account for those in 99% of the cases. And on that fringe case of the 1%, here's what you need to do. Like, do I need a HubSpot? And the plans were like $900 a month to have this all-in-one email automation and CRM and stuff like that. No, it was the answer. I'm a big fan of HubSpot, and it certainly serves its purpose. We will never get sponsorship, Mark, now from HubSpot, but the answer is, like, unless you have the demand for a real tool to do the heavy lifting, syncing between MailChimp and Pipedrive when you have 20 people turning up to an event once a quarter or once a month, it's just overkill to have an all-in-one solution. So yeah, I don't think the all-in-one solution sounds like a dream, but you really have to be a power user to get the most out of it. I guess that would be my summary.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. I do sometimes see it can go the other way around. I buy in completely to what you're saying, and more often than not, I think that that's true. Sometimes people will try and stitch together such complicated
Yeah.
ecosystems of best-in-class tools because they are so they are so predicty that an all-in-one tool could never possibly cover all their edge cases. So they try and
Mhm.
come up with this insane Frankenstein of other tools, and inevitably they spend so much time keeping them connected and
Yeah.
working together that it almost has the opposite effect. But yeah, I agree. I think in many cases people can just start simply with one or two best-in-class tools, connect
Mhm.
them, and they don't need the full expense of an all-in-one solution like a HubSpot.
Yeah, because I often get asked like, "What's the best CRM?" And my tongue-in-cheek response is the one that gets used. Like that is the best-in-class one. And often when if I used to do a lot of marketing automation implementations as well. This is before kind of AI was around or easily available. And a lot of the times when I was taking the requirements of what they wanted for the custom fields, all the different things they wanted, my question was always, "Do you really need it? Do you really need it?" And especially when some of that data was going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort to get from one place to another.
Mhm.
And then the head of sales might say, or the VP of sales might say, or marketing might say, yes, our sales reps need it. And yes, our account executives look at this all the time. Take, for example, previous call notes. Lovely to have in a CRM, very rarely looked at by most sales reps.
Mhm.
So when you would then when I turn around and ask the sales rep, like, how often do you look at this data and what data do you need to look at? And the response, not recorded in front of the VP of sales was, Mark, I just turn up to the call and honestly, I wing most of it. I will look through some notes if I need to, but usually I remember who I spoke to, and depending on the setup, of course. So I think when you are evaluating tech as well, like all the bells and whistles and all the things it could do, just ask yourself, back to your point, Mark, the use case, what do I really need this to do? And am I okay with using this tool for now, knowing that I might change in the future when the use case changes, when the volume gets higher? So I think that's another important thing. Like the tool that you pick right now is not going to be the tool that you use in 5 years' time when you're about to IPO. If you're a 2-year-old startup right now.
100%. I've seen the same. I used to work at a consumer insight software business, in short, market research, and when you were selling into a buying committee, you'd ask, look, what are you trying to understand about your target market? And it would go to the NPD department, marketing, sales, right? And then also, I really want to know this, and I must know this, and this is really essential. You'd end up with this 25, 30 question survey. It's like, firstly, no one's ever going to answer that many questions, so we have to whittle it down. But the real thing was then, cool, right? It's going to cost you this amount. And suddenly it's like, oh, hang on a second. No, we don't really need that. No, we don't really need that. And you get it right back down to 10 questions. So
Yeah.
I think the problem with software as well, if you go out to a buying committee and you say, look, what's everyone's needs, wants, everyone comes back with their best in case scenario because they have no concept of the cost and weight that it adds to the decision and the
Yeah.
software. If they did, if you actually put a price tag next to it and said, look, this is going to mean we go from MailChimp and Pipedrive at a few dollars a month to $900 a month, and it's going to come out of your budget because you need this one esoteric feature that you're never going to use, they'll say, oh, actually, I'll live without it. Right. So
Yeah.
I do think I've been there, I've seen it before as well.
I've been there on both sides of the table as well. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up for today. It's flown by as always.
yeah.
Yeah, so much fun, so many questions that we haven't quite covered off, but yeah, we'll put this chop it up, put it back out into the world so people can hear what we've been talking about. And if anyone does have further questions, I know they can reach out to you directly, me directly, and yeah, we're both pretty responsive, and we'll get back to folks.
That's it. All right, Mark. Until the next one. Speak to you soon. Take
Cheers, Mark.
care.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye.